writers here, so I would like to acknowledge them, but I'm not sure that they're here quite yet. I think this is a remarkable night, and none of it would have been possible without the truly tireless energy of my colleagues, Dene Grigar and Kathi Berens, so I did want to thank them. I'm also deeply grateful to the MMLA, who has been open the last couple of years to the prospect of electronic literature, digital literature, and that allowed us to have our exhibit this year. If you haven't been already, if you would stop by, we've got one more day tomorrow. The exhibit is open until 7. Not only is it the first exhibit of e-literature, but apparently Dene tells me it's the first exhibit of anything ever at the MMLA, so that's pretty... Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah. And those are all of my introductory comments. So we're going to be a lean, mean machine tonight. Thank you again for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to Kathi Berens, who is going to do a quick Skype with the lovely Jason Nelson.
Actually, I'm going to turn it right over to Jason. Jason, you're on. Okay. Hold on.
Wait, audio.
Are we piping? Hold on, we need to pipe some audio. The audio is not working.
It's Elson.
Okay. Okay, your audio cable is in. Yeah.
Hi, everyone again.
Yeah. Hello.
Jason Nelson here from Australia. Hi, Brian. So about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I contacted the lovely Lori, Kathi, and Dene about doing sort of a collaborative prize project of sorts. Now, this thing was really kind of important to me for a variety of reasons. The first reason of which is the fact that, as many of you who work in this field know, Flash is dying. It was so sad. That's all I know how to do is pretty much work with Flash. So, because of that, I'm happy to make this transformation, as I'm sure a lot of you are doing, finding new types of code and working in different ways. So what I did is I made the project where I got people sent me emails with bits of text and video, tweets, a whole range of things. And then I took all that and completely effed it up and made it kind of strange and bizarre. And then I also am running a project second. First, let me show you the work. Now, keep in mind, the work is not done. It's also one of my first forays into playing around with jQuery. You know what that is? So it's a bit odd. It's a mashup of code and bits of text and a whole range of things. Some of you might even recognize the interfaces I'm using. So let me show you the work, and then I'll talk about who's going to win the secret prize. So here is... Try this again. All right. Can you all see my screen?
No, not yet. Wait a moment. There we go.
Let's try it again.
No, it's working.
How's that?
There's a 5-second delay when it starts.
Yeah.
So just be patient.
I will. Sorry.
There it is.
Hooray! Okay.
Hooray.
So this project is called The Last Days of Drag Racing Puppets, which I love. This is nothing here. Basically what this is it's an interactive timeline. So this is code I've cobbled from other places. Some of you might recognize it. What it does is I've taken bits and pieces of text that people have included, and I've included into this interactive timeline. So what happens is you choose a section, comes up, there's David Heckman. There's a little quote about puppets and a video with him. You can move to another section, so there's a lovely poem by Stephanie Strickland, and that's a video of her with a reading. And so eventually what this is going to be, it's going to be populated with, I think, about 40 or 50 different bits and pieces. So this is the lovely director of the MLA who tweeted this and that a video about translation, which is a bizarre video. I won't even play it. This is a lovely thing from, so you can see it's a mashup of bits and pieces. Now, I basically only had about a week or so to make this work. So it's kind of curious and under development. But hopefully you'll get an idea of what this is. Now, usually, the way I've worked in the past has been in Flash, so doing things like this. Now, the bad side is that it's much harder to do really dynamic things in JavaScript jQuery, but it's something I'm going to have to attempt, because as you all know with your fancy little tablets, that's all you want to do. So my current God is just about dead, which is very sad. Now, I only have about 5 minutes. I'd like to announce the winner and winners, and then let you know what the project's going to be. So, here are the winners. Basically, what's going to happen is each one of them is going to have to send me a check for $5,000. Stephanie has an R in her name. And no, what'll happen is I am going to make what's more or less a digital, and I'll shift it back to the video real quick. But I'm going to make a kind of a digital portrait. So I'm going to work with them, get information from them, get content from them. So much in the same way a painter might paint someone as a portrait, or someone might write a biography of someone. For my example, Stephanie Strickland, and a wild card. Now, a wild card is going to be chosen randomly. I haven't chosen that person because I'm going to wait to see if we get more entries until the end of the exhibition. But I'm going to be making basically a portrait of them, but it's going to be a work of electronic literature. And it's going to be a hybrid work combining elements from Mark Sample's life and creative bits, and Stephanie Strickland's creative bits. And now this is a project I'm going to spend a lot of time on, and it's a project I'm going to use as a test case for going from Flash into jQuery and Ajax and all these other codes and bits. Anyway, so that's just my brief hello. Hi everyone, I'm so sorry I can't be there. Kathi and Dene and Lori have done an amazing job, and they will share the link with the project with you guys as it happens, I guess, whenever they share it. All right? So I think my 5 minutes are up, right?
Yeah.
Great. Hi, Lori.
Hi. Okay, next up, everybody, is John Cayley, who is doing a little Google Hangout with us from London. I think that's where he is. John Cayley writes digital media, particularly in the domain of poetry and poetics. Recent ongoing projects include the Readers Project with Daniel C. Howe, Imposition with Giles Perring, River Island and What We Will. Cayley is professor of literary arts at Brown University, where he teaches writing in and for digital media, including electronic writing for immersive artificial audiovisual environments. Presently, Cayley is obsessed agonistically by writing to be found with, against Google and other similar services. John Cayley.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think we can.
Clearly?
Yes.
No.
Hold on.
Well, all I have is my voice, especially from here. Are you ready?
Yes, we're ready. I think it's good.
Okay, here we go. This is more about some of what we're doing rather than being what we're doing. And it's called Pentameters for the Dissolution of the Vectoralists. Language is a commons, and yet by contract... Sorry, I'm going to start again. It's early in the morning here. Language is a commons, and yet by contrast with First Nature's free resources, it is constitutive of culture, while all at once incorporate within those cultures it enables. As language is a commons, to use it, we need not agree to terms. Now, counter to our expectations and our rights, agreements as to terms of language use are daily ratified by the vast majority of so-called users, you and I, by all of us who make and share our language on the internet. Services, like those of Google and many others, still expressly offer their results in swift symbolical response to phrases of a language we call natural. Words composed by human writers desire us to discover something that they wish to read, if only with the aim of transacting through commerce, and so satisfying a moitié of our more beetle cravings. Although the objects of our culture have each their specific materials, now these may be mediated by the insubstantial substance of machines that symbolize or seem to, in potential, everything. The digital identity, thus, it presents itself as service and as goal, non-vital but commensurate, unaligned, and yet all capable of service, of facility, a limitless archive of affordances. And so it ceases to be some thing or substance amongst others. It becomes the currency of all we are, essential infrastructure, determinative of practice and of thought. Despite this, it still seems made by us and lesser, a servant still, and so we treat the digital as if it remained in service, though it sustains or seems to all that we desire to be. We will not live without it, yet we believe that we still should choose to purchase and to use a relation that is optional, elective, and we manage it as such. On the screen. Sorry. I continue. Even for those writers who may be in denial of any digital mediation of their practice, network services are likely to provide for them crucial points of reference, essential to the composition of their texts, and intimate with whatever artistry they own. If this is the case, then given how the structures of the network and its services are deployed, terms of use have literally been agreed. The commons of language is in part enclosed by its very makers. The writer has considered that he or she is happy to supply a phrase, how many, and to who, and on what terms, and then to receive, to read, and to transact with results that have been fashioned from the store of every other user's phrases and from the indexed language of all that has been published on the internet by you and I since it began. Results that have been fashioned, which is to say that they, words orthothetically abject to those within ourselves, have been shaped by algorithm, and to this circumstance the writer has agreed. Perhaps we may, you and I, pretend to have some general understanding of these algorithms' behaviors, yet the detailed workings of such processes are jealously protected. Indeed, they are proprietary, closely guarded and esteemed as highly valuable for reasons that may be entirely divorced from or at odds with the tenor of our queries. The underlying transactions and the relationships devolved are very different from any that arise when you or I take down our dictionary to look up a word. However, the power of the cultural vector represented by the mouth or maw of Google's search box and its ilk is all unprecedented. For any artist, scientist of language, it is like the revolutionary and revelatory power of a newly discovered optic, allowing you and I to see suddenly and spectacularly farther into the universe of language by several orders of magnitude. The writer may observe and get some sense of the frequency or range of usages for words and phrases in our living contemporary tongues up to the millisecond, all in a few keystrokes and clicks. This extraordinary facility, unconceivable until just now, is presented as a freely open service in the guise of what has already been cited as cultural vector. Oriented where and how, by who, for who, to what end. That this momentous shift in no less than the space-time of linguistic culture should be radically skewed by terms of use should remind us that it is fundamentally motivated and driven by quite distinct concerns to those of art. Here are vectors of utility and greed. If language is a commons, then what appears to be a gateway or a portal to our language is, in truth, an enclosure, the outward sign of a non-reciprocal, hierarchical relation. The vectoralists provide us of what we call services, harvest freely from our searches in themselves and from whatever language we have published, using fantastically powerful and sophisticated algorithmic process, lately known by many names as bots, robots, spiders, and the like. But we users, you and I, who make and publish what we write, are explicitly denied, according to their terms of use, any such reciprocal opportunity. We may not freely use our algorithmic processes to probe the universe of capta, our captured and abducted data. Even though our aim may be to imitate, assist, or to prosthetically, aesthetically enhance, to beautify the human user. And so, why not? The foremost reason is the harvested capta might be muddy and so rendered less effectively correlate with its primary purpose, to represent in a normalized form the most frequently expressed and potentially most profitable human desires, such that advertisement may be intimately associated with our harvested phrases, ideally at the moment of harvesting itself, with human eyes to read not only a desired result, but an intimately associated and immediately transactable desire. Moreover, the vectoralist ads are made with sign chains that are orthothetically disposed towards the language we have written. This also is previously unknown, that advertisement intended to induce a profitable and non-reciprocal exchange be made from something that is proper to the addressee. This is material appropriation of cultural interiority to venal desire, wrongly subjecting and reforming you and I with a false enclosure of precisely that which should never be enclosed, the openness of all that we inscribe. And yet, the so-called interaction of so-called users is falsely founded on unwitting, habitual, and ignorant terms of abuse. Seize these vectors now. To make art on terms, impossible. For the sake of art, and for the sake of every cultural institution and their futures, we must find a way to refuse such terms of use. If you and I do not, then services like Google's will quite literally show us how to write and give us what they know we want to read, bettering ourselves. Okay.
John is getting up at an ungodly hour for us. 4 in the morning?
I'm being interrupted by my children.
Thank you so
They
much
shut
for
up to
being
being
here.
very loud.
Okay, go back to
I hope
bed.
that was loud enough, though.
Yeah, it was perfect.
Okay, cheerio.
Bye. All right. Next up is Jim Andrews. Jim, you want to come on up? Yeah. I'm sorry, it's a little awkward.
there, and there's also space beside the bar here if anyone wants to come in. So this is the lovely Jim Andrews. Jim has published bizbo.com since 1996. It is the center of his work as a poet, programmer, writer, visual artist, and audio artist. He lives in Vancouver, Canada, and here is Jim.
Thanks very much, Lori, and thanks also to Dene for organizing this event. That was a very interesting piece by John Cayley. And the piece that I'm going to show you, which I did in 1997, called Seattle Drift, is written in JavaScript, which is the programming language of the web, an open source language to which I've returned recently, actually, after having worked with the director, Adobe Director, formerly Macromedia Director. That is deader than Flash. And as Jason said, Flash is dying. And I've also used a web service called Google Image Search in a piece that I did called DV Cinema. And now Google has discontinued their API for Google Image Search. So that part of DV Cinema isn't going to work in 3 years, something like that. So I think I get the message. So I'm returning to JavaScript because it's an open source language, and though it isn't as powerful as Director or Flash, it at least stands a chance of coming to its logical conclusions as a language, as a platform, as opposed to what happens with these corporate tools, which is they get co-opted by some mechanism, whether it's through bad business plans or Steve Jobs or whatever is the reason. These proprietary tools just don't seem to be, as John was pointing out, serving us. So this is the first programmed piece that I did back in 1997, Seattle Drift. I'm a bad text. There used to be a poem that drifted from the scene. Do me. I just want you to do me. And you can do the text. And that was something that I was interested in. Exploring these texts that could have behavior, in this case, bad behaviors. Click to do the text, then it begins to drift. You can click to stop the text, at which point, of course, it stops. Click to discipline the text, so it goes back to its initial position. And so this was probably the world's first DHTML poem, dynamic HTML, which is a combination of CSS, cascading style sheets, and JavaScript. But anyway, this was back in 1997, and DHTML at that time was very difficult to write in order that it would work in multiple browsers and on Macs and PCs at the same time. It was pretty much impossible to do, as they say, cross-browser, cross-platform DHTML. But then in 2005, a Finnish programmer, poet by the name of Marko Niemi, was commissioned by a print magazine in Finland to do some web poetry, to do an issue of web poetry. At which point he even translated, he translated Seattle Drift into Finnish, and he upgraded the code also, so that all of a sudden it was possible to run Seattle Drift on the Mac also, and on pretty much every browser that you can name. So I just took his code and put the English his code, thereby upgrading the English version. And that's something that has to happen as well with electronic literature, is it has to be upgraded from time to time in order simply to be read. So I thought that was an interesting little story concerning how it goes sometimes with these sorts of pieces. This piece being, at this point, 16 years old, 15 years old, something like that. But anyway, many thanks for being here tonight.
Okay, next up are the two Aarons, as I like to call them. Aaron Angelo and Aaron Costello, who I both know from, well, Aaron Costello is a graduate of the MFA program at Boulder, and Aaron Angelo is currently a PhD student. So Aaron Angelo is a poet and multimedia artist living in Denver. He holds an MFA from the University of Colorado, where he's currently pursuing his PhD. His work has been published in Drunken Boat, Psychic Meatloaf, Spring Gun Press, and other journals, and his art has been exhibited in various galleries across the U.S. Aaron Costello is a poet, digital artist, and web designer who holds an MFA, also from the University of Colorado. In 2009, she founded Spring Gun Press with Mark Roxwald, and hopefully some of you know that press. It's fantastic, and they publish some digital literature, some of which is by people in this room. And there it is. And here they are.
You have to give us a second. Here, we're switching computers.
This is a documentation of a piece of an installation we did about a year ago.
It's a creative documentation.
Environment. The audio and video you are experiencing is live. A reading experience online or in print is never pre-recorded.
You are encouraged to explore the environment freely. Touch the poems, touch the video, touch the sound. Poem media is not a linear.
Two poems
The
are
audio
printed
is
in
alive,
each card,
or
and
is
the
a
audience goes
combination
through the
of
hanging
music,
poetry,
spoken
reading as
text, voiceover, and other ambient sounds from both nature and anti-nature.
Some video
Poem media
outputs
is
found
interested
images
in
from various
We
media
write
sources
poems
on
on
some
You
videos,
can find
original
objects
video
of
from
the
the
world
artist.
on-screen reading environment dominance.
The audience hears sounds
Technology
like
The highs and
the
lows
events
of the
and works
wind
together
together
as
around
the audience
the
enters the space. Some video output is found in various media sources on videos, medium data for the artist. An audience member said that the paper looked within the installation. The audience cannot cite aliens from the culture. We just wanted to make the internet. This installation challenges the already uncertain definitions of digital poetry.
The heights and locations are random, but Aaron and I are poets. Aaron is a calls into question and is presented as a montage, naturally we always style.
It asks, what is the role of poetry? Page poetry specifically, in a digitized, information-saturated world.
We once read in silence, now we read in noise. Pomedia wants to reclaim the word in context, the word not flattened to its typographical symbolism. Put the printed word into the digital, rather than put the digital into the printed word.
In all those stories, the hero
is beyond himself into the next thing, be it those lovers of Hercules or Aeneas going into death.
There's a woman watering a river. She's using buckets and a faucet. I wonder what the difference is between using cash money to create literature and actually scattered those.
I've heard the waters in some
Interacting with social media, audio, the audience interacts with these media artifacts.
Reading environment dominance.
Media, magnetic music, film, web pages, looping around into a recess.
An audience member said the house is wood,
Installation is designed as variation of recognize the society, local separation of the outside. The missionary on the boat was so beautifully patient, but it wasn't his God that made him that way.
those who restrain desire do so because theirs is weak enough to root. He still paints with a brush, the painter of the modern
Dolce and Gabbana, vegetative state due to massive head
2-year-old
injury,
mother
stack of
of
hand
comic
batteries at satellite
holds a
passing
hand
by
against
nightly.
glass,
All
watches
was
a
true.
street light.
And on the last day, God created the internet.
Reading makes
I need to teach and read about dead men. Ramnick. If suddenly you do not exist, if suddenly you are not living,
That food
I shall
knows
go
it.
on living. We write poems on computers and consume them on paper.
4 video projectors display a live or recorded video performance
We
on
just
the
wanted to
card.
make the internet.
The end result
Some
is
video output is found images from various media sources.
Hello,
Some videos
test
are
1, 2,
original
check,
videos
check,
from
check,
the artists.
check, check,
Sites
check.
and locations are randomly scattered around the space. This money doesn't flicker.
I am made here out of Derek's creation myth, out of his dead child in a
I wonder what the 4 video projectors display a live.
This installation challenges the already uncertain
media is
definitions.
interested
We
in a
just wanted
book
to make
as
the
an infinite
internet.
network within a
basically
finite.
physical
I have so
walk
many
in the
noided
world.
on-screen reading environment dominance.
She said missionary. Ebbing, flowing, laughing, and material. Yeah.
Yesterday I wanted to speak of it, that sense above the others to me, important because all that I know derives from what it teaches me.
We once read in silence, now we read in noise. That food knows it.
Spicer's aliens
It
wrote
is
the poem.
electronic literature in print.
Two poems are printed on each card, and the audience walks through the hanging poetry, reading as they.
Spicer's
Media
aliens
is
wrote
interested in
the
their
poem.
display of live, recorded, electronic literature world of on-screen reading environment dominance. Have to go outside, face the tree shapes, upward on the sidewalk. Smokestacks or power poles, or a column of brick, or a pine shrub, or a lightning rod, or a walking staff, or a hypothetical stack of anything to the moon, or my inbox, or street lamps, or there is a woman watering a river. She's using buckets and a faucet connected to a little girl in a sundress and a structure. There are complete solutions scattered across the grounds. Little aisles of little trays full of little screws. I turn on the thermostat to get away with something. That gravity, so cruel to precipitation, I watch it, magnetic in the pine shrubs. Looping rows of pine shrub, looping rows of pine shrub, looping rows of pine shrub along the back fence.
Next up is Mr. Ian Fogos.
He doesn't get an introduction.
He will. Hold on.
Okay. I want to hear about the Ian Fogos. Who is this guy?
All right, next up is Ian Fogos. Ian Fogos is professor and director of the graduate program in visual media at Georgia Tech. He's the co-author of 7 books, and an award-winning game designer. So he's going to read and quote from A Slow Year tonight.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Can you hear me? Okay, let's do this. This is a strange book of poetry. It's strange because it's really a video game, or at the very least a curious box made to house that video game. And the game it houses is not an ordinary one about elves, or about soldiers, or about footballers created to run on the latest and most powerful computer, but a new title for a video game console more than 3 decades old, the Atari Video Computer System. And that Atari game is not a nostalgic remake, a popular shoot-'em-up, or a new take on an iconic action-adventure, but a set of playable poetry that owes as much to William Carlos Williams as it does to Will Wright. More specifically, A Slow Year is a collection of 4 games, one for each season, about the experience of observing things. These games are neither action nor strategy. Each of them requires a different kind of sedate observation and methodical input. The game embraces maximum expressive constraint and representational condensation, and for that reason, it has much in common with the poetic tradition. I call these 4 playable seasons game poems, for they embody the traditions of both video games and poetry separately and together. The quartet that constitutes A Slow Year thus becomes a little collection, a kind of video game chapbook. A Slow Year is also a book in the more traditional sense of the word. In addition to the game poetry contained on the disc or on the cartridge, this book also contains written poetry, although those poems too are unusual. For one part, I've rejected common video game conventions for explaining how to play. Instead of the clarity and directness of tutorial, I offer only 5 haiku to explain how to play the games I've created. And for another part, as an accompaniment to these games about the seasons, I offer a series of additional haiku totaling 1 kilobyte in number, 1024, split into sets of 256, 1 set for each season. These generated poems, too, are unusual because I did not write them, not in the usual sense that poetry gets written, at least. each word chosen deliberately and methodically by a human author. Instead, I wrote a computer program that generates haiku, authored such that the form and theme of its output matches the subjects explored in each of the seasonal challenges found in the video games. Thus I call them machine haiku because they were forged by computer. Taken together, the book draws the forms of video game and poetry closer together, for to me they're cut from the same cloth. As a game, a slow year relies on the procedural representation of ideas that the player manipulates, and as poetry, it relies on the condensation of symbols and concepts rather than the clarification of specific experiences. Together, it offers visually evocative yet obscure depictions of scenes, objects. To play, to read this game isn't an expression of the death of the author, nor a process of getting out of the player's way, in the sense that game designers like Clint Hocking and Doug Church have proposed. The author remains but like a shade, and the player encounters the machine, its creator fashion, and that design configuration inspires them to consider what it means that its gears mesh. When I manipulate the system, what its operation does to invite me to conclude is the question the player asks. The images poems show us how an abundance of meaning can emerge from tightly crafted specific components, not from enormous expanses of possibility. So a poem like Ezra Pound's In the Station of the Metro leaves enough room to see the Metro riders as either the doleful subjects of labor or as the glistening Venuses amidst the iron. The reader does not receive this message, the message of the poem, but excavates its images and uses those to craft relevance. The relationship of player to game is like that of the archaeologist to the ruin. A game, like a poem, is a remnant of something fashioned and disposed of by its creator. Thus, when we play, we excavate, we find the rusted yokes, the shards of vessels, the inscriptions of rites. We find systems that symbolize and evidence of lost civilizations that we can never fully understand. They exist only to summon wonder instead of to define clarity. Players unearth the operation of knowledge, of thought, of ritual, of behavior from the fragments of those systems left behind, whether they're poetic or ludic. As players, we excavate, like archaeologists, the lost civilization of the game, playing with the system's ghosts so that we might understand ourselves through the implements of another. Now, there are several ways to use the machine haiku in the book. The player could, of course, simply ignore them and engage with the game as well, or she might read them as variations on a theme from the game, as writing meant to draw the game's imagistic seasons closer together with poetry, or she might use them as a kind of idea book, a sort of notion for play sessions with the game. 1,024 machine-tooled notions with the potential to provoke. So what I want to do is I'm going to ask my colleague Nick Montfort to play a game whilst I read some of the generated haiku, and we'll see how that goes. Is there a... So what I'm going to do here, is there a light? Oh, brilliant. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to read the instructional poem, and then Nick is purportedly going to understand how to play the game, and then I will read several selections from each season. So I think if you just open this up. Oh, we need to. I've never done this before, so. Okay. Right? Sort of. There we are. More. Okay. Awesome. Magic hour two. Breathe, grows to gust, then recoils. Pile meets falling leaf. The great herbage sips one blinking vegetation. Its wheeze dares watch them. Park chops surfaces. One grass boxes a white layer. Floras diagnose them. Lone grape closes grass. Autumnal abstract whisks close. More patches would spread. Floors hide what scares them. Those grasses tax their desire toward dirt. Surface slaps. The nuns tie laces. Their bluey leaves love each crease. Lonely zephyrs lead. Fire can touch no one. Both trees bomb each flat verdure in bare autumn wraps. Blasts clean under nuns. Each supple apparatus regards breaths briefly. Plants damp the surface. Enclosures look inside nuns. Abstract and ruddy. Some terrains caress. Each sky weaves beyond each twig. Sheltered, one twig breathes. Winter. Hibernal sunrise. Hot coffee slowly turns cold. Savor till daybreak. Freeze warns rituals. No fleeces please what chooses. For flakes, azure burns. Brew shears unfairness. The nights split its black homestead, thick, wet, and woolen. One lonely handle, bundled sleeps, breed zestfully. The aurora cuts. Each unstrong kitchen slits ungroundful, biting quaffs, bright even if black. Under the hazes, cups scrutinize black coffees, while desks, flannels cleave. Gelid woods catch cold. Wheat woods rise, cooling strong heats. Quenches lie watching. Each creek kisses frosts. Awareness dares fix strong pulps, etching each window. Ice sins against lights, warm and snow-clad and freezing. Winter slurps blanket. A warmful powder, sketches repeatedly blue. Asleep till dark black. The awareness shapes. Ices blaze still, now offend. Chalices rummage. The table is puff. These yards spray each numb outside. Still materials. Spring. Rain pounds the pavement. Lightning. When will thunder clap? A button reckons. Rush squishes grayness. Downpours scratch on exposed counts. Bolts, sometimes sublet. Frights watch the front yard. Each salt gluts over the blaze. Wetnesses harass. Summer. Afternoon craves nap. Eyes follow the aimless twig. Waken when they meet. Let's see. I'll read just a few of these. Books read cottonwoods. Both weekends cut through water, lit up by a breeze. Cobalt surface. Yellowless, certain woods puff. Their full brightness stares. Have you got one? Pushing, clouds hasten. White, limpid, and estival. Their pet log